This is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm your host, Mark Gunn. The views expressed on this program are those of the host and guests and not necessarily reflective of anyone or any entity associated with this broadcast. This episode, our long national nightmare is finally over. Or is it? I'm recording this on Wednesday, January 6, 2021. Want you to remember that date because it's going to be one that goes down in infamy. You know, last night I was watching the election returns from the Georgia senatorial runoff. Up for grabs, as you probably know, complete control of the Senate. Democrats Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock were up against incumbents John Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. Turnout in Georgia had been extremely huge, thanks to the efforts spearheaded by Stacey Abrams.
Can you talk about the long-term consequences of what you've been able to build, of the work that you and people like LaTosha Brown and others have been doing? What does that mean that Georgia becomes now?
What we've seen over the last decade has been a steady change in demography, but we know that electoral politics always lag behind demographic change. And what we've been able to do in this state is really acknowledge, harness, and now invest in that demographic change. And the reality is that trend is not going to reverse itself. We are going to continue to see a diversification of the state of Georgia. By the end of this decade, we assume a lot of the projections say that Georgia will be a majority-minority state. And what that will signal is that any party that wants to be competitive in the state is going to have to reckon with what it means to address the issues of health care, of jobs, and of justice. Those are the conversations we're having in this election, and those are the conversations that will continue until we come to a resolution that truly serves all of the people of Georgia. That's why we know that we are competitive, and that's why I believe that we will continue to make gains over the next decade and more.
The state of Georgia turned out in numbers pretty close to the November elections. Being the political junkie I am, I stayed up as late as I could to see if the results would be finalized last night. However, a little bit after 1 o'clock this morning, the first winner was declared.
In the critical Senate runoff races in Georgia, right now, ABC News and the Associated Press are projecting that the Reverend Raphael Warnock will win one of those seats for Democrats, edging out Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler. Reverend Warnock leads the storied Ebenezer Baptist Church from the pulpit that once belonged to Martin Luther King Jr. He will be Georgia's first black senator and only the second elected from the South since Reconstruction.
And here's what the good Reverend had to say about his victory.
I come before you tonight as a proud American and as a son of Georgia. My roots are planted deeply in Georgia soil. A child who grew up in the Caton Homes housing projects of Savannah, Georgia. Number 11 out of 12 children. A proud graduate of Morehouse College. And the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. and Congressman John Lewis. A son of my late father, who was a pastor, a veteran, and a small businessman. And my mother, who as a teenager growing up in Waycross, Georgia, used to pick somebody else's cotton. But the other day, because this is America, the 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton went to the polls and picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator. So I come before you tonight as a man who knows that the improbable journey that led me to this place in this historic moment in America could only happen here. We were told that we couldn't win this election, but tonight we prove that with hope, hard work, and the people by our side, anything is possible. And I promise you this tonight, I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make. Will we continue to divide, distract, and dishonor one another? Or will we love our neighbors as we love ourselves? I remember my dad in this moment. He used to wake me up every morning at dawn. It was morning, but it was still dark. It's dark right now, but morning comes. And scripture tells us that weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Let us rise up greet the morning, and meet the challenges of this moment. Together, we can do the necessary work and win the future for all of our children. Thank you. God bless you, Georgia, and God bless these United States of America.
We wouldn't get the results of the Jon Ossoff race until later this afternoon. However, he made the bold move of declaring victory last night.
It is with humility that I thank the people of Georgia for electing me to serve you in the United States Senate. Thank you for the confidence and trust that you have placed in me. At this moment of crisis, as COVID-19 continues to ravage our state and our country, when hundreds of thousands have lost their lives, millions have lost livelihoods, Georgia families are having difficulty putting food on the table, fearing foreclosure or eviction, having difficulty making ends meet. Let's unite now to beat this virus and rush economic relief to the people of our state and to the American people. I will work in the U.S. Senate to support a robust public health response so that we can defeat this virus, putting Georgia's own Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the lead, trusting medical expertise, doctors and scientists to bring the tools to bear, the technology to bear, the ingenuity to bear, and the resources to bear necessary to stop the spread of this virus, to defeat it, and to get our daily lives back, and to rush direct economic relief to people who need help right now. This campaign has been about health and jobs and justice for the people of this state, for all the people of this state. And they will be my guiding principles as I serve this state in the U.S. Senate, ensuring that every Georgian has great health care, no matter our wealth, ensuring that we invest in an economic recovery that includes all communities, that rebuilds our state's infrastructure, that lays the foundations for prosperity in rural Georgia, suburban communities, and urban communities alike, and securing equal justice for all, following in the footsteps of leaders who have departed us in this last year, like Congressman John Lewis and C.T. Vivian. I want to thank the people of Georgia for participating in this election. Everybody who cast your ballot, everybody who put your faith and confidence in our democracy's capacity to deliver the representation that we deserve. Whether you were for me or against me, I'll be for you in the U.S. Senate. I will serve all the people of the state. I will give everything I've got to ensuring that Georgia's interests are represented in the U.S. Senate. I want to thank all the volunteers who poured their hearts and souls into this campaign. I want to thank my family for their support and their patience. I want to thank my wonderful wife, Alicia, who, as we speak, is at the hospital helping Georgia mothers deliver healthy babies, helping save lives. Let's emulate the spirit of courage and heroism of those who have given so much to the health response to this crisis, as we unite as a people to overcome this challenge of COVID-19 and to build a republic that lives up to our highest ideals of equality in God's eyes and equal justice under the law. Georgia, thank you so much for the confidence that you've placed in me. I am honored by your support, by your confidence, by your trust, and I will look forward to serving you in the United States Senate with integrity, with humility, with honor, and getting things done for the people of Georgia. Thank you so much.
Now, again, we wouldn't find out that Jon Ossoff actually won until this afternoon. With Georgia giving the Democrats a clean sweep, it means that they now control both houses of Congress. They hold the majority in the House of Representatives, and now they have the majority in the Senate. That majority by one, with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris breaking any ties in the Senate. This also means that Democrats will be the chairs of several important committees, making the nomination process for Biden's cabinet picks just that much easier. Speaking of which, he announced a really huge one today.
President-elect Biden has selected his choice for Attorney General. The president-elect intends to nominate Judge Merrick Garland to lead the Department of Justice. This is coming as it appears that Democrats are getting closer to securing that Senate majority. And Garland, you'll remember, was also President Obama's pick to serve on the Supreme Court just before he left office, but Republicans had blocked that nomination from even being considered. considered during that election year. Now, Garland had been a top contender for the past few weeks for this position, but there had been some concerns that there would be issues with the fact that he sits on the Court of Appeals for the District of Washington, D.C., and that nominating him would potentially create a vacancy there that Republicans would block if they were in the majority. But as the races down in Georgia become much clearer and the Biden team is getting a clearer picture of how that is going to pan out, the president-elect has decided to move forward and nominate Judge Merrick Garland as Attorney General. We are expecting this announcement to come as soon as tomorrow, but this is one of those top positions that had been outstanding in the cabinet as Biden is looking to round out all of that cabinet before he takes office.
What's even more important, Mitch McConnell is no longer the Senate Majority Leader. That post will go to Chuck Schumer. That means that the over 400 pieces of legislation sitting on his desk will finally get looked at. Part of that legislation, the stimulus checks that you and I were supposed to receive as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. Even though Joe Biden has been certified as the next president of the United States, the Electoral College says so. And despite all of this, Donald Trump, being the petulant child that he is, wouldn't concede.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
Somehow, the idiot in chief has it in his head that the election was stolen from him, that there was massive voter fraud. So much so that he filed over 60 lawsuits and he lost just about each and every one of them. You'd think he'd give up, right? Oh, no. This idiot went and did something that could end up getting him in legal trouble. He actually tried to shake down the Georgia Secretary of State in order to flip the election in his favor.
We have won this election in Georgia based on all of this. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, Brad. You know, I mean, having a correct, the people of Georgia are angry. And these numbers are going to be repeated on Monday night, along with others that we're going to have by that time, which are much more substantial even. And the people of Georgia are angry. The people of the country are angry. And there's nothing wrong with saying that, you know, that you've recalculated.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Now, do you think it's possible that they shredded ballots in Fulton County? Because that's what the rumor is. And also that Dominion took out machines. That Dominion is really moving fast to get rid of their machinery. Do you know anything about that? Because that's illegal.
This is Ryan, Germany. No, Dominion has not moved any machinery out of Fulton County. We're having.
Well, but have they moved? Have they moved the inner parts of the machines and replaced them with other parts?
No.
You sure, Ryan?
I'm sure.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have, not even close. You're off by hundreds of thousands of votes. You know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. And you can't let that happen. That's a big risk to you and to Ryan, your lawyer. That's a big risk. But they are shredding ballots, in my opinion, based on what I've heard, and they are removing machinery, and they're moving it as fast as they can, both of which are criminal fines, and you can't let it happen, and you are letting it happen. I'm notifying you that you're letting it happen. So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state. So tell me, Brad, what are we going to do? We won the election, and it's not fair to take it away from us like this. And it's going to be very costly in many ways. And I think you have to say that you're going to re-examine it, and you can re-examine it, but re-examine it with people that want to find answers, not people that don't want to find answers. For instance, I'm hearing Ryan, and he's probably, I'm sure, a great lawyer and everything, but he's making statements about those ballots that he doesn't know. But he's making them with such, he did make them with surety, but now I think he's less sure because the answer is they all went to Biden. And that alone wins us the election by a lot. You know. So.
Mr. President, you have people that submit information, and we have our people that submit information, and then it comes before the court, and the court then has to make a determination. We have to stand by our numbers. We believe our numbers are right.
Well, under law, you're not allowed to give faulty election results, okay? You're not allowed to do that, and that's what you've done. This is a faulty election result. And honestly, this should go very fast. You should meet tomorrow because you have a big election coming up, and because of what you've done to the president, you know, the people of Georgia know that this was a scam. And because of what you've done to the president, a lot of people aren't going out to vote. And a lot of Republicans are going to vote negative because they hate what you did to the president. Okay? They hate it. And they're going to vote. And if you would be respected, if this thing could be straightened out before the election. You have a big election coming up on Tuesday.
Coming up, I told you to remember this day, January 6th, 2021. A day that will live in infamy. You'll find out why next. If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. If you're listening to this program right now, this is where you'd hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your commercial is professionally produced and gets a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program unlike anything else in the marketplace. Episodes are available for download on iTunes, TuneIn, and MarkGunMedia.com. And depending on how you tailor your message, the potential for new and repeat customers is that much greater. Best of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you'd like more information on how you can be a sponsor of this broadcast, call Mark Gun Media, Inc. at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or log on to markgunmedia.com. For downloads of this and past episodes and information about all the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com. Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. Before the break, I told you to remember today's date, January 6, 2021, because it is a date that will forever live in infamy. A couple of things happened over the last 24 hours. Democrats gained control of the Senate as a result of the Georgia runoff votes. And today was the day that the official Electoral College votes were to be certified in a ceremony that's done every 4 years.
Interesting day in Congress as it prepares to officially count the Electoral College results. In years past, or 4 years and 4 years before that, we might not be focused particularly on this event. But this year we certainly are because President Trump has made us focus on it.
This is typically kind of a ceremonial thing, the capstone to the election season before you go into Inauguration Day. Today, though, we're going to see a very contentious counting of the Electoral College votes in Congress. And Mike Pence, the vice president, is the guy who's going to be on the hot seat. That's because he presides over this joint session of Congress, which begins at 1 p.m. today in his capacity as the president of the Senate. And they'll go through the process of counting all the votes of the states in alphabetical order. Now, if there are any objections here, the joint session dissolves if the objections meet all the legal tests, and we expect that there will be some, and they will meet those legal tests. That means that the House and Senate are then going to vote separately on those objections. They could have up to 2 hours of debate on each of the objections. We don't know exactly how many we're going to get here, so we don't know how long this is going to last, if this can be wrapped up today or if it's going to bleed into tomorrow. But Pence will be presiding over all of that. He's limited by the Constitution and by the law in terms of what he can do. Doesn't have much authority from the chair there. But the president of the United States has been tweeting out that he expects Pence to throw out these Electoral College results and to overturn the election for Biden and give it to Donald Trump and Mike Pence as vice president. Pence simply can't do that. He can't do what his boss wants him to do. He can't do what the political base he's appealing to for his future political career, whatever that might be, wants as well. So that puts Mike Pence in a very awkward position today. We'll watch all of this. Should be some drama on the floor of the House of Representatives later on today.
There was a group of Republicans that went on record saying they would object to the counting of some of the Electoral College votes. And it didn't take very long before the first objection came.
Mr. Vice President, I, Paul Gosar from Arizona.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
I rise up for myself and 60 of my colleagues to object to the counting of the electoral ballots from Arizona.
Is the objection in writing and signed by a senator?
Yes, it is.
However, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warned the Republicans about taking such an action.
6 weeks ago, Americans voted in this year's general election. The legal and constitutional processes have continued to play out since then. Yesterday, electors met in all 50 states. So as of this morning, our country has officially a president-elect and a vice president-elect. Many millions of us had hoped the presidential election would yield a different result. But our system of government has processes to determine who will be sworn in on January the 20th. The Electoral College has spoken. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time.
Not too much longer after that, all hell broke loose.
This is treason. This is treason. This is insurrection. This is rebellion. Period. I have heard people looking at small protests in Portland, Oregon, where people were tear gassed, beaten, kidnapped. And they said, no. Whatever you do to those protesters is okay, because we have to have law and order. We have to have law and order. This is rebellion. It is treason. It is lawlessness. It is unacceptable. And we are on a glide path at this point to having to look down the barrel of possible civil war. All the things we talk about up here sound so abstract. When we talk about the peaceful transfer of power, it just sounds like something from a book. This is what it looks like when you don't have a peaceful transfer of power. Abraham Lincoln talked about some people want rule or ruin. If I can't have it my way, I'll burn the whole country down. If I can't have it my way, I will burn the country down. So now I don't think that Republicans and conservatives can look at this and say this is okay. I'm calling on all of my conservative friends, my Republican friends, to say, what would I do if Black Lives Matter dropped 30,000 black people on the nation's capital and laid siege to the seat of power in the middle of a joint session of Congress and broke in? What would I say if Black Lives Matter did that? I'm going to say that right now. If Muslims did it? If Muslims dropped 30,000 Muslims on the seat of government in the middle of a joint session of Congress and ran in there and there was blood on the floor and tear gas, what would we be saying? If you believe that we are all one people, you don't like the hyphenations. If you believe that we're all one country, if you believe in law and order, if you're against traitors, if you are for patriotism, there needs to be a uniform denunciation from top to bottom of the Republican Party of what we're seeing. And the last thing I just want to say is this. For Keisha Lance Bottoms, a black woman who was a mayor of Atlanta, when they started rioting in Atlanta, she stood up and she said, "You stop it. You don't do this in Atlanta. You don't do this in America." She stood up to her base and told them to go home. Where is the President of the United States? Where is Donald Trump? Show the wisdom and the intelligence and the strength of a black woman mayor of Atlanta in the middle of this riot, and then we can get someplace.
Yeah, the difference here is that the mayor did not incite the riot.
That's right.
And the President of the United States did. I don't understand how you don't understand how we got here. We know how we got here. We know that words matter. And when the President of the United States says again and again and again that these institutions are corrupt, they're rigged, the election was fraudulent. They're stealing it from you. When he goes out and addresses these very people today and tells them that they have to be strong and urges them to march down to the Capitol, I don't understand how you don't understand how this happened. We know how it happened. And he is culpable for this. You know, Winston Churchill said dictators ride to and fro upon tigers which they dare not dismount, and the tigers are getting hungry. The president sits in the White House, and the tigers are loose at the Capitol.
Hundreds of Trump supporters broke into the Capitol building, some of them armed, a lot of them getting into violent clashes with police. And as of this recording, one woman has died as a result of what people are not hesitating to call domestic terrorism.
You know, the definition of terrorism is the use of violence, especially against civilians, to achieve a political aim. That was a terrorist attack on our Congress today, in our U.S. Capitol. And this is not a partisan comment. That was incited by the president, President Trump, who at midday gave that speech to that mob saying, march up Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol, take back our country, stop the stealing of this election.
And where was Donald Trump? Hiding on Twitter like a little bitch.
And then after they occupied the Capitol, and he went into the Rose Garden and made a video saying to the mob that was up in the Capitol,
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace.
That's something that no president in American history would ever have done.
And the media reaction to Trump's so-called statement was swift.
Now, we brought that to you because President Trump on the tape says to his supporters who are right now conducting an armed insurrection on the U.S. Capitol, he tells them to go home. But I also want to note that in that video, he lies about the election being stolen and pours more fuel on the fire. He continues his shameful behavior of lying to his supporters about what happened. It is absolutely disgraceful. I hope they listen to the part in which he said for them to go home. But to be completely frank, there were mixed messages in that video. And I feel ambivalent about the fact that we even aired it, to be honest, although I certainly understand and support the idea that we did. But the idea that the president is not even capable of saying, please go home. He continues to lie to his supporters. And what I wanted to say before, Abby, is I want people to remember how they feel watching these images of the United States Capitol being taken over and these clear acts of sedition and violence and terrorism by Trump supporters, because there's going to be an attempt to whitewash and pretend this didn't happen.
And a couple of other questions came up about the way that police responded and how they treated the terrorists. Even in the midst of blatant treason, America's double standard when it comes to law enforcement rears its ugly head. MSNBC's Joy Reid explains.
I can go back to 2014 as a correspondent at curfew time in Baltimore when I was covering the Freddie Gray uprisings. And these were mass marches that were in regard to police taking Freddie Gray's body and treating it like a rag doll and flinging him into the back of a police van and then riding around with him unshackled in that van until the rag doll broke and he died. And he died alone in the back of a car, being brutalized for no reason other than making eye contact with police as he rode his bike. And the uprisings that took place after Freddie Gray brought in a level of policing that I've never witnessed. It looked like a war zone. Police brought in tanks, body armor, full gear, enormous powerful weaponry, and they were phalanxed out all across Baltimore. They were standing menacingly, waiting to brutalize anyone who even looked at them funny. The level of force, the level of just almost indiscriminate rudeness, cruelty, hardness of those police officers, and at curfew time, which would be 9 o'clock, and it was terrifying. And what terrified me in those moments in Baltimore were not the marchers. The marchers just wanted justice. They just didn't think it was okay to just kill a guy because he looked at the police funny. I was afraid of the cops because they were menacing. The reason that these people were so unafraid of the cops, who were sparsely distributed through our capital, which hasn't been breached since 1812 when it was burned, the reason they could easily and casually, with their cameras on, film themselves throwing things through the walls of our Capitol, our property, going inside the Capitol, sitting in Speaker Pelosi's office, casually take pictures of themselves, have that played on Fox News. They know that they are not in jeopardy because the cops are taking selfies with them, walking them down the steps to make sure they're not hurt, taking care with their bodies. Not like they treated Freddie Gray's body. White Americans aren't afraid of the cops, even when they're committing insurrection. Even when they're engaged in attempting to occupy our capital, to steal the votes of people who look like me, because in their minds, they own this country, they own that capital, they own the cops work for them, and people like me have no damn right to try to elect a president. Because we don't get to pick the president, they get to pick the president. They own the president, they own the White House, they own this country. And so when you think you own it, you own the place, you ain't afraid of the police because the police are you, and the police reflect back to them. We're with you. You're good. We're not going to hurt you because you're not them. Guarantee you if that was a Black Lives Matter protest in D.C., there would already be people shackled, arrested, or dead.
As with anything involving the American justice system, we'll have to see if these terrorists actually get prosecuted. And here's the ironic thing. These idiot Trump supporters committed federal crimes, committed acts of domestic terrorism for nothing, for a ceremony that is absolutely meaningless. Your guy lost. Get over it. Some of you clowns like to talk about Second Amendment solutions. Might I strongly suggest that if you're not careful, if you keep this up, someone may use a Second Amendment solution on you. You've been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and not reflective of any business entity or anyone associated with this broadcast. If you have any comments or want more information on how to be a sponsor, log on to our website at markgunmedia.com or call us at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.